They told us humanity would perish in days, and we believed it. We sat in our orbiting thrones, sipping photon wine, watching the swirling blue marble of Earth like amused gods peering into an ant farm. The humans had always been unpredictable, yes, volatile, self-destructive, obsessed with war and ideology. But this was different. This was not a war they could fight. This was the Elyndari, an ancient race, born of starlight and storm. Magic incarnate. Not the crude energy manipulation that some of the younger species called psionics or quantum resonance, but true magic, the kind that bends reality like a reed in the wind. A single Elyndar had once carved a moon into a ring around his homeworld using only his voice. Their younger sorcerers could summon storms that consumed continents. When the Elyndari ships descended upon Earth, wrapped in void silk and blue flame, we all agreed. This was not an invasion. This was a cleansing, a mercy. I was the one who made the final vote to observe, not interfere. I remember thinking, let it be quick. But nothing about what followed was quick. Nothing about what followed made sense. They landed first in the deserts of what the humans call Nevada, near their Area 51, ironically. A test, we assumed. A gesture. An opening of the stage. 3 Elyndari mages disembarked from a shimmer rift and stepped onto the sands. The air around them shimmered, not from heat, but from impossibility. Every grain of sand that touched their feet turned to crystal. Lightning traced idle patterns in the clouds above them, leashed like pets. Within minutes, satellites and sensors across Earth registered their presence. Within hours, human forces responded. Drones, tanks, fighter jets. We laughed. I laughed, and then we stopped laughing. The first wave of human attack was what we expected. Swift, aggressive. Technologically overwhelming by human standards. 72 drones, armed with hypersonic missiles, swarmed the Elyndari landing site. From our orbital platform, we tracked their trajectories. Fast, precise. The missiles struck dead on, and nothing happened. No explosion. No impact. The missiles dissolved mid-flight, unraveling into streams of salt and ash. The Elyndari didn't flinch. One of them raised a hand lazily, as if brushing away a fly. The remaining drones crumpled in the air and fell like stones. They are swatting away metal flies, I thought. This is over, and yet it wasn't. What we didn't understand, what we never predicted, was how humans react to being helpless. Other species panic. They surrender. They pray. Humans. They rage. They plot. They adapt within hours of that first defeat. The United Defense Coalition, a loosely unified force, formed during their last global conflict, launched a second offensive. Not drones this time. People. They dropped a battalion of infantry using stealth pods, coordinated with EMP barrages and orbital jamming. A brute force attempt to confuse, disrupt, and then overwhelm the Elyndari. It failed. Spectacularly, the Elyndari walked through walls of bullets as if through smoke. They turned soldiers into statues, froze flames in midair, summoned beasts from human nightmares. One of them sang a note so high it cracked bone. 103 humans fell dead in one breath. But this time, something unusual happened. One soldier, a woman named Castillo, survived, not because she fought better, because she saw something, and what she saw changed everything. She described it later. In one of the human transmissions we intercepted, they weren't invincible, she said. They were tired, a small detail, almost insignificant. But it was true. Every spell, every conjuration, every terrifying display of magical power, it left a faint trace, a ripple in the air, a pause in their motion, a wince, sometimes, behind their veil-like masks. The Elyndari were powerful. Yes, but they were not endless. And humanity, for all its faults, is the galaxy's finest. Expert in one thing, exhaustion. They build wars of attrition like symphonies. Grind down gods with blood and patience. That's when we began to worry. In the second week of the invasion, things began to change. We watched, stunned, as human forces stopped attacking and started baiting. They lured Elyndari out of urban areas, using fake communications and broadcast illusions. They created decoys of entire cities, empty shells filled with traps, mines, electromagnetic scramblers. They didn't always win, but they stopped dying in silence. Each battle became longer, bloodier, more unpredictable. And then came the moment. None of us expected. The first Elyndari felled it. Happened in the ruins of Tokyo. 2. Mages were pursuing a squad of retreating humans into an old subway line. A trap, it turned out. The humans detonated 3 fusion bombs. Not close enough to kill, but to disorient. Then they attacked with sound carefully tuned infrasonic waves that disrupted magical resonance. A guess, born of desperation, and it worked. 1. Elyndar lost control of her summoning, and the void construct it had created turned on its master. The second tried to intervene, but was struck by a railgun slug that pierced its shoulder. And then a woman, Castillo, again stepped forward. She didn't shoot. She simply held up a mirror, a relic, old, cracked, but enchanted, human-made. The Elyndar looked into it and screamed. Later, human scientists would speculate that it showed them their own true form, or perhaps their future, or something worse. Either way, it ended with one Elyndar dead, and the other retreating. The subway tunnel collapsed behind them. I remember the silence on our council deck. That day, no one spoke. Even the FCAR, who never shuts up, sat with his mouth tentacles drooping in disbelief. The humans had drawn blood, and the had bled. I asked for a vote to intervene. It was denied by then. It was too late. Humanity had found its edge, and worse, it had begun to discover something else. Something we hadn't seen in 1,000. Cycles, magic, but not the kind the Elyndari wielded. Something new, something feral, something human. They never saw it coming, because we, the Alliance, didn't see it coming either. In the days after that first Elyndar death, the conflict shifted. No longer was it a simple invasion. It became a crucible. The humans themselves were shocked. In televised broadcasts, governments declared national emergencies. Religious leaders called it an apocalypse. But the public, the million little souls, reacted as they always do. They acted. They built strange towers on the coasts, conduits made from rare earth metals, quantum lattice, and runic circuits carved by hand. They wired these towers to satellites, power grids, and the web. They called them ley nodes. They claimed these nodes would help them channel the disturbance. We, in the council, watched, confused. We saw lights leap between continents, arcs of energy unlike anything we recognized. We saw storms gather over these ley nodes, arcs like veins pulsing across Earth's surface, and then, on the third moonless night after the Tokyo incident, it began. From the ley nodes poured out energy. Golden, crackling, alive. It rippled across continents. It traced lines along tectonic faults. It sang in thunderstorms. It glowed undersea, across deserts, in jungles. It was human magic. Untamed, untrained, raw. The Elyndari responded immediately. They struck at the nodes. They razed cities. They carved somber swaths across continents, pruning the nodes with spells of vaporization and demolition. They declared them abominations in their arcane tongue. But each time they destroyed one node, two more awakened somewhere else. As if Earth itself was a living thing, flexing its limbs. The nodes fed on fear, hope, desperation, all the combustible emotions of humans. We debated again. Some said this was an abomination. Magic unleashed by humanity is unpredictable, dangerous even to the galaxy's balance. We should intervene, forcibly strip the humans of this power, save them from themselves. I argued -no. Because by then, I had changed my mind. I no longer believed humanity was doomed. I believed they might just survive. But that made me dangerous among my peers. The battle escalated. Whole continents became battlefields. The Elyndari summoned hurricanes over Europe, plumes of magnetic fire in Asia, and walls of water slicing across Africa. Their mages rode lightning bolts across plains. Their constructs, enormous living statues, marched on capitals. Human armies responded with everything. Plasma cannons, antimatter shells, disruptive fields, orbital lasers. Soldiers strapped into powered exoskeletons, firing grenade launchers, railguns, energy whips. Some wielded small gadget ones, infused with rudimentary magic born from the ley nodes. Others carried swords, crackling with electric runes. Casualty numbers soared. Cities fell, were leveled, then rebuilt, sometimes in the same night. Vacuum-sealed bunkers sheltered millions. Underground factions formed, guerrilla cells attacked supply lines, sabotage reigned. The conflict became fractal, battle within battle within battle, and through it all, I watched. I recorded. I felt, yes, fear. For the first time, we felt fear. I remember the night the Elyndari struck New Delhi. They called a council meeting that afternoon to decide whether to commit our fleets, to send in alliance peacekeepers, or to force a truce. I went to the observation window. Below me, the city was on fire. A ring of storms, conjured by Elyndar mages, swirled overhead. Electric arcs danced between skyscrapers. The Indian government, whatever was left, broadcasted a desperate plea for help. The vote was close. Some argued we must not commit that intervening created precedents, that the humans must solve their own destiny. Others argued that the sheer scale of devastation, billions at risk, demanded we step in. I broke the tie. I called for a small intervention force, not to defeat the elite, but to protect collapsing sectors, hospitals, refugee corridors, shelters. When my order sent transports through the void, I felt the weight of betrayal in my bones. We arrived too late. The Elyndari had already battered the city into ruin. But we rescued thousands. We escorted them beyond the magical storm barrier into force-shielded ships. We carried children, the dying, the broken. I saw human eyes in the dark, despair, fury, acceptance. Some spat curses at us. Some wept. Some simply stared, hollow. One woman, clutching her child, looked at me and said, in broken but clear voice, "Why now?" I had no answer. None, but that intervention changed everything. It forced the Elyndari to acknowledge us, the Alliance. They turned their wrath upon us, tearing streaks in space, summoning rifts in reality. Our ships burned. Our shields flickered. Our mages had to hold lines, throw up wards, channel cosmic currents. We lost vessels, many. Entire flotillas were torn apart in minutes by spells. The Elyndari fought like gods defending territory. Still, we held. We repelled attacks. We protected human sectors. We evacuated survivors. We tried to demonstrate to both sides that Earth was now in the common domain, but the war remained bloody. Meanwhile, on Earth, something incredible was happening. A human mage order emerged. Not by decree, by sudden emergence. They called themselves the Awakened. They were scattered at first, a Pacific islander sculpting water as if it were clay, a Russian woman hearing the whispers of a South American man conversing with forest spirits, a Nigerian child standing in a war zone, stopping bullets with a wave of his hand. They trained each other in hidden enclaves. They shared knowledge. They developed spells, crude, flawed, dangerous, but useful. Shields, wards, elemental manipulations, illusions, binding rituals. They reverse-engineered Elyndari magic from residual arcane imprints, then adapted it. They innovated combining technology and sorcery. They rigged drones that flew on ley currents. They built rifles that fired magic-charged rounds. They wove network spells through the internet, summoning small energies in distant places. Their existence fractured human leadership. Some embraced them. Others feared them. Some slandered them as monsters. But in battle, they became symbols. The spark in the darkness. The unexpected match. The war turned into episodes of conquest. Counterattack, ritual siege, guerrilla fight, arcane duels above city ruins. And each time the Elyndari thought to quash a node or a mage stronghold, they met resistance, instantaneous, ferocious. I remember the moment I realized humanity might win. It was over the Pacific, a floating city built by humans, anchored above water, connected with sky bridges and ley conduits. The Elyndari targeted it with a They intended to plunge it into the hurricane's eye and sweep it away. But the Awakened had anticipated. They had erected shield altars, ran conduit security, stabilized currents. The storm walls clashed against their wards. Bolts struck, melted against energy lattice. Lightning reversed direction, struck Elyndari ships themselves. The sea raged. The humans rode the chaos like a wave. The floating city held, and when the Elyndari retreated, burning, we saw something new. Not surrender, but recognition. Recognition from gods that they were not gods anymore. Still, the war wasn't over. We, in the Alliance, were stretched. We burned reserves. We called in favors. But the Elyndari, too, ancient and formidable, threw everything at Earth. They opened void gates in orbit, summoned starstorms, even rift beasts from beyond galaxies. They attempted to isolate the solar system with arcane null fields, cutting off Alliance supply lines. We lost many worlds trying to maintain support. Some member species withdrew, claiming Earth was a clusterfuck not worth the blood. Others insisted we go all in. And all the while, I sat at the observation deck, watching the warping glow of Earth through my viewport, feeling something I had long denied, respect in the final campaign. Both sides threw their last gambits. The Elyndari gathered their might over the Sahara. They erected a citadel carved from living stone, pulsating with arcane energy. They called it the Oblivion Spire. Their goal, to collapse Earth's lay architecture, shattered the nodes, extinguish human magic in one cataclysmic stroke. Human command knew they could not defeat a raid on the spire by conventional means. Instead, they mounted a multi-pronged attack. The Alliance would breach from orbit, holding open corridors. Human strike teams of Awakened would infiltrate from subterranean tunnels. Drones and mech teams would channel support. A ritual would be cast to seal the spire from within and redirect its energies outward, not inward. I volunteered to accompany the human mage contingent. I was one of few aliens who would learn some node sorcery. I wished to see it, to feel it, and to bear witness from the heart of it as we descended. Amid storms and floating debris, the Elyndari defenses lashed out. Void rifts opened. Magic arcs snapped. Our transport skidded through the sky. Inside the spire, reality bent. Fabrics overlapped. Shadows had weight. Time itself flickered. The walls whispered. We fought through guardians, animated stone golems, flame serpents, wraithkeepers. The Awakened chanted. I held my wards. We lost many, but we pressed on. At the core chamber lay the central node, heart a station pulsing with arcane energy, built of starlight and stone. The Elyndari leader, a figure tall and shimmering, awaited us. He threw a spell so vast I saw countenance fracture. Our ritual began, led by the apex Awakened mage, a girl from the Andes. She called upon Earth itself, rivers, winds, tectonic currents, skies, breath. The spire roared in protest. The Elyndari leader cast counterspells, fought with raw force, tried to sever the link. For a breathless moment, the whole chamber stood still. Then, the heart of the spire cracked like glass. Light exploded outward. The ley lines on Earth responded. The nodes glowed brighter, sending out beams of golden power. The spire fractured. The Elyndari leader screamed as his flesh unraveled, his magic collapsing. He vanished in a storm of particles. In that moment, the Earth itself seemed to sigh. The spire collapsed. The shockwave rippled across continents. The skies lit with auroras. The nodes surged. The Elyndari strongholds lost resonance. Their wards failed. Their storms collapsed. Their armies faltered. When it was done, I stood in the ruin, watching Earth, the Elyndari retreating into rifts. The skies clearing. The nodes glowing softly, stabilizing. The Awakened, battered, victorious. I turned to the human mage leader. She looked at me, exhausted, wounded, triumphant. She whispered, "We did it." And I found my voice in all that silence. I spoke words I never thought I would. You humans, have won. In the months after the war wound down, the Elyndari withdrew to their realms, licking their wounds, vowing vengeance. The Alliance offered aid in reconstruction. We helped stabilize ley networks, rebuilt shattered cities, allowed humans to join the galactic body as a fledgling magical tech civilization. Some were wary of humanity's raw magic. Some envied it, but more than anything, they respected it. I recorded this narrative for future testimony, to warn others not to underestimate the desperate, the cornered, the human dot. We, the Council, thought we were watching an ant farm. We believed we saw a doomed species. We believed we would watch them perish and turn away. Instead, we watched rebirth. Humanity did not fall. It rose, and now, in this new age, I ask, do not mistake their violence for mere chaos. Do not dismiss their anger as barbarism. In that fire, you may find a force to reshape worlds. Because when you strip them of everything safety, certainty, power, they build anew. And the magic they forge will be more dangerous and more magnificent than anything they ever stole. I remain, in humble record, a Zareth of the Council, observer, once skeptic, now awestruck.